Hello everyone and welcome back to Serious Sunday. My name is Luke, I am your host, and this is the show where I talk about video games and things. And this week it's been a bit of a slow week as far as video game news is concerned, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's nice when life is pretty quiet, but that does mean that Serious Sunday often does end up having not a whole lot to talk about. So this week I thought I'd just riff a little bit about Capture the Flag. In particular, the Capture the Flag mode called Capture the Rooster in Overwatch. We used to talk a lot about Overwatch, so this shouldn't be overly surprising to you, but after a very long hiatus, I had the opportunity to play the most recent Capture the Rooster Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year festival, since they also show D.Va in a traditional Korean outfit. And they kind of used that as a testbed to try out their brand new Capture the Flag mode, which they called Capture the Rooster, specifically because it is the year of the rooster, which also means that I'm 36 this year. Whew. Anyway, what I felt like I should particularly be talking about in regards to the Capture the Rooster game mode is how much people seem to hate it. As a game designer myself, I know that it really doesn't do me any favors to harp on the entitlement of video game players, but it always weirds me out how we have all of these sort of backseat designers that seem to feel like they know exactly what a game needs to have and shouldn't have. In my limited experience playing with the Capture the Rooster game mode, I've seen a lot of hate from various players about the game mode, and people just kind of complaining about how much they think that it sucks. Now, Overwatch has sort of traditionally been a game of really king of the hill for the most part, with a small amount of Team Fortress 2's payload thrown in there. But on a personal level, and I said this during the video that John and I recorded and recently aired of the two of us playing the Capture the Rooster game mode, that having two parallel objectives was kind of a fun and interesting new experience with Overwatch. Granted, established team dynamics do make it difficult to split a team up between an attacking and a defending group, but I feel like that's more a matter of people just aren't used to doing it in Overwatch, as opposed to the game just not being quite ready for that kind of game mode. There were some decisions that were made that were perhaps not optimal for the game mode. I noticed that it was particularly difficult to get your hands on the flag, especially when you had people like Symmetra and Torbjorn really camping the spot, when the flag's capture radius is extremely small. But ultimately I chalked that one down to myself being not overly experienced in that particular game mode, as well as being kind of rusty. But a lot of people seem really upset by the fact that in this new Overwatch game mode there's a whole lot of draws, and I think a lot of players just aren't ready to accept the fact that they weren't quite prepared for this new game mode. But it seems weird to me that there's this sentiment that it just shouldn't exist in the game if it doesn't work perfectly the first time that they roll it out. Overwatch has done an awful lot of experimentation since it came out, and I can only imagine that there's going to be a lot of experimentation that's done in the years to come. And though the start could have been rocky, perhaps, that doesn't necessarily mean that Capture the Flag in Overwatch isn't going to work out once they manage to iron out all of the kinks. The unfortunate thing here is that, for better or worse, Jeff Kaplan and the team over there at Blizzard seem to be very receptive of user input and what players do and don't like in the game. It was said specifically when they were talking about the Capture the Rooster game mode that they wanted to test it out and see if people enjoyed it, and this is apparently a game mode that they had been attempting to do over a long period of time. So players complaining about this new game mode and saying that it just doesn't belong in Overwatch is going to be somewhat demoralizing for the people at Blizzard, despite the fact that they're a huge studio and they, generally speaking, know what they're doing. If everybody really just seems to hate the game mode, then as much as I'd hate to think that it would actually happen, there is a chance that they'll just decide that it's not something that they really need to spend all that much time and effort on improving on, and maybe just scrap it altogether, and we lose the opportunity to have an extra and interesting new game mode just because a couple of people were pissed off that it didn't work out exactly the way that they thought it should right from the get-go. Inevitably, developers want to do what they can to please their fans, and I think this is very evident in the interaction that Blizzard has had with their users in the past. They obviously found some of the memes around some of their characters, like Dad76 and Diva Goblin, I think it was, to be hilarious, and they adopted those to a certain extent into their own game as well. Some people cry artistic integrity and get upset when they do things like that, but honestly, it's not just giving back to the fans, but sometimes you think, yeah, actually that does make sense for this character. This isn't what we thought of originally, but I like this version of our character more than what we had come up with on our own. I've been ostensibly in charge of naming the monsters in Monstrosity, the game that I'm working on recently, and our effects artists and some of the programmers have some of the best name ideas that we can come up with. I'm not going to say that my own ideas are necessarily bad, but sometimes they just say something that I didn't think of but think is amazing once they do come up with it. The simple fact of the matter is sometimes we get feedback and we really like it and we run with it because of that. But it can have negative effects as well. Some developers are really sensitive to user feedback, Blizzard being one. There are a few companies that seem to chase the meta in their games quite as visibly as Blizzard does, and that's really to their credit. They do an amazing job engaging with their player base and making improvements on the games that they create because of it. But that could also have the possible side effect of them deciding to scrap an idea that just doesn't seem to work because the fans just didn't like it. If they were ambivalent about it in the first place or weren't entirely sure if it was going to work, a bunch of negative feedback from a bunch of entitled players is just the kind of thing that could put the nail in that coffin. Unfortunately, constructive feedback is hard to come by, especially in a popular competitive game like Overwatch. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not giving them credit. I think that they've made mostly great decisions during the creation of this game. My own personal disdain for the Mei character aside, I think that they've made mostly great decisions with the game. And every time a new arcade mode has come out, I've thought it was pretty fantastic. And though there are certainly improvements that could be made on their Capture the Flag mode, I think that overall, as a proof of concept, it works. Just improve the map, maybe make the capture area a little bit bigger on the flag, maybe slow down the flag bearer a little bit so that you can mitigate some of the issues with movement powers. I can't imagine they haven't played a ton of tribes over there, so I'm sure that they can use some of that as inspiration as well. But I, on a personal note, think that it would make a great fixture in Overwatch regular play. I wouldn't roll it into the regular competitive rotation, at least not in its current iteration, but let people play it if they want to play it, and make fixes to it in classic Blizzard fashion. I think it has a ton of potential, and even though there's a lot of players that are hating on it, it's something that Blizzard should spend more time exploring. New game modes are great. Overwatch is one of those games that I can binge for a very long period of time, but I do have a problem with game burnout because I end up feeling like I'm playing the exact same thing over and over again. Having a Capture the Flag mode or some of the other interesting arcade modes readily available for me to change it up from time to time is the exact sort of thing that I need to keep me interested, and I can't imagine that I'm alone in that sentiment. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. It's their game and they've done pretty good so far, so fingers crossed anyway. And haters are gonna hate, so c'est la vie, I suppose. Anyway, that's it for me today. Like I said, slow news week. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, or if you didn't, then you probably didn't watch it all the way to the end anyway. If you are watching all the way to the end, however, thank you very much for sticking with me. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. If somehow this episode compels you to subscribe to this channel, hey, that's awesome. Otherwise, check out some of the other stuff that we've got. We've done some pretty cool Let's Plays, and I do a series about video game development every Thursday. Either way though, thanks for dropping by, and I do hope that you have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Take care.